I'm proud to welcome you to a special series of the Exceptional Advisor podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Bob Powell. Over the next several weeks, this special series will highlight exceptional advisors in these extraordinary times. We hope this series helps you to better serve your clients, differentiate yourself from the competition, and enhance your ability to communicate those differences in light of the unique challenges and emerging norms of the current times. My guest in this podcast is Noel Pacarro Brown. Noel is a financial advisor with the Conscious Wealth Management Group at Morgan Stanley. She is also recognized by her firm as an Investing with Impact Director, Family Wealth Advisor, and Senior Investment Management Consultant. She has been certified by the Investments in Wealth Institute as a Certified Investment Management Analyst and a Certified Private Wealth Advisor. So, welcome to the podcast, Noel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So before we get started, for the benefit of our listeners who may not be familiar with you and your work, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your history of involvement with the Institute?
Happy to. Yeah, I am the lead of the Conscious Wealth Management Group at Morgan Stanley. We are a comprehensive wealth management team based in Honolulu, Hawaii, but serving clients, families, foundations, and founders across the country. We have an emphasis in impact investing and ESG integration, and we've been around for over 35 years. So in terms of my involvement with the Investment and Wealth Institute, I actually have known about the organization since I was 16 because my mother sat for the CIMA, and she was one of the first 100 students. So I got to actually witness her study and take those exams at Wharton. I was her roommate, and we went on a college tour after that. So since then, and joining and taking over the family practice about 12 years ago, I was really convinced that having the backing of the Institute and the credentials that came with it were going to be imperative to my success as an advisor. So as soon as I could, I got my CIMA, and shortly thereafter, my CPWA, and have written white papers, have helped write exams, have been on the annual conference committee, and now sit on the board of the Investment and Wealth Institute. So it's been a huge part of my life and my career as an advisor, and I'm just really excited to be able to share whatever I can with our membership and our community today.
Well, we're glad that you are sharing it with us. This, as our listeners may know, is the second in a series of podcasts that we'll be doing, which we describe as the Exceptional Advisors in Exceptional Times series. And our hope here, Noel, is that you can tell us a little bit about what you're going through with respect to your practice, your business, the business of giving advice, and also to check in on your clients and what's going on with them. So let's start with your practice, and maybe you can paint us a picture of what's going on in your practice and
Sure.
what our listeners can learn and take home with them.
Sure. So our practice was actually founded by my mother. So we refer to it kind of lovingly as the mothership. So the practice itself, and kind of like, I'm going to blank on his name, but that notion of Noah's Ark and how as advisors, we kind of keep people, safe and grounded through a storm. We've really adopted that into our practice. And so just like you would an ark or a ship, on our mothership, we've got our crew, which is our team. We've got our passengers, who are our clients. Our ship is our practice itself, the engine, our portfolios. And then, of course, we have a course that we chart. And, everyone's portfolio looks different, but we do have kind of underlying themes and a vision looking at trends, both long-term and short-term, to help us, really navigate. And on the ship, of course, storms come. And that's what to us, this pandemic has presented is a storm that we really couldn't anticipate. It was a risk, but not definitely the timing and the magnitude no one could have ever predicted. And so, in any circumstance in which we're confronted by a storm, in the first phase of that, our focus really is just to keep everyone on the ship, like just tie down everything and keep everyone calm. So that is the first thing that we do. And that was I can tell you in that process, we went to daily calls as a team to check in with each other to get an understanding of what we needed to do on that day and compare notes in terms of information that we had. And then we went to the phones and we just spent the time with our clients, just talking with them, calming them, giving them all the information we needed, and updating them, giving them the sense that as we go through this, all hands are on deck and we know what we're doing in terms of keeping everyone afloat through the storm, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of being hard to anticipate this, but in terms of the degree to which your practice was
Yeah.
prepared for certain things. So, did you have the right technology in place? Did you have disaster
Hmm.
planning, crisis
Sure.
communication, business continuity? The possibility that people would be
Yeah,
working from home. Did you have the sort of that in place, or was that something that you had to do on the fly?
totally. No, we're really fortunate that we work at a great institution like Morgan Stanley. So I am super grateful that we have kind of the best in class teams for business continuity and cybersecurity. I mean, we have the best cybersecurity team that was lifted from the NSA like 5 years ago to build our security system. And I myself, now live in Portland, Oregon, with my team being in Honolulu, Hawaii. So our ability to work in coordination without having to be in the same place at the same time, we had practice doing. And so everything was really somewhat set up. And I think it's important to note that our ship and the way that we run it, the engines themselves, like we had already been kind of kicking the tires, making sure, doing stress tests with our clients, using technology like Aladdin that BlackRock built, Morgan Stanley has adopted into our desktop. We had done these things way in advance of any certain situation because we knew, having gone through the financial crisis, that you can't predict when these happen. So our kind of meticulous way in which we manage our practice, our client portfolios, meeting with them quarterly, pruning the garden, setting things up with strategic allocations, having very much a plan in place for every client. Like this was work that we never stopped working hard for our clients and putting in the hours to do a meticulous job to prepare them for whatever could happen. So I think we were definitely at an advantage coming into this situation.
I take it that much of your team, instead of going into the office in Honolulu, is now working remotely from their homes.
Yep. And we're all set up to now do Zoom via our corporate Zoom with our clients. And even before that, we have secure online capabilities. Like we have a digital vault, we have Morgan Stanley Online, we have the ability to send funds through Zelle. There's any number of things that we're able to do securely with our clients right now. So it really was, the biggest difference was not having to commute. I mean, for us, and spending time on Zoom as a practice, coming together every day to put our heads together.
Mm. It has become one of the platforms of choice for many people.
Yeah, for sure.
So, just another sort of prosaic question, but with respect to the business of your business,
Uh-huh.
how are things going with respect to revenues and profits? And do you anticipate making changes to your pricing, and do you anticipate making any changes going forward to the business of your business?
So I'm going to answer that question, but I'm going to talk about the next phase
Sure.
after the storm. And that's that we recognize, I'm going to answer your question by telling you about this phase. We recognize that there's no sense of keeping everyone on the boat if they're miserable and freaking out, right? So, like actual passenger care and making sure checking in, because this is like a crisis of human capital. If you think about it, like no one can work in the way they have, they can't transport in the way they have, and what it's doing, we think, is kind of awakening our human capacity. And what I mean by that is it's requiring us to, if we are going to go on a journey, it's going to have to be an inner journey. I'm getting a little existential for a good reason. Okay, so our passengers are feeling really panicked, worried about their loved ones, of course, dealing with a whole new routine, a whole new setup. And what we recognized was in order for us to really help them along this process, we needed to do more. And so we've created Zooms across our business to allow our clients to interface with us. I mean, they don't have to show their faces, but they can, come and see us talk with portfolio managers, with strategists, and that has created community. And so, what's interesting is in reaching out to your point about revenue, and reaching out to our prospects and people who've been kind of in the wings, kind of ready to board the ship, but not quite there. These smaller touches, to be honest, have been the thing that they feel is what they actually want. The portfolio construction, the actual practice and the pricing and all of that is important, and we have that. But the community and the awareness of what people actually need in this moment, I think is the thing that is helping people go, you know what, I want to switch ships. I want to be with you. So we're actually in a mode of gathering revenue. We haven't changed our pricing. We don't feel the need to. We're definitely doing a lot of ACATs in right now. And I would say the other story, which we can get to in a little bit, is that we've already had an emphasis on impact and environmental social governance integration and a deep values-based kind of principles within our client portfolios. And those clients who are prospects who we've talked to about this have thought, yeah, that sounds lovely. But now we're getting to talk to them about how these very companies who cared about, understanding climate risk also cared about labor risk and cared about thinking through from a risk management perspective how to keep revenue going in these types of scenarios. They're the ones who are doing really well. They're demonstrating major resiliency. I can't speak for all, but I would tell you our portfolios for those, that have had a focus on ESG and have met that criteria are really demonstrating right now. And we can point to these things, particularly with first quarter data, to not just our clients, but our prospects. And people are recognizing that it makes total sense. I mean, just as a, very obvious, proof, most of our clients had a lot less fossil fuel than traditional portfolios going into this. So you can only imagine that alone has definitely helped weather, through the storm.
Well, just as a side note, I've had the chance and the luxury to do podcasts recently with portfolio managers at Pax World at Calvert. I spoke to Tony David
Wonderful.
recently, and it is
Oh,
striking the degree to which all these ESG funds have done in this current environment relative to non-ESG funds, which is largely, I think, attributable to the fact that they don't own oil and gas and whatnot, but also because they own companies that do practice good governance and have good environmental policies. And right, so a credit
yeah.
to you that you're in the right place at the right time. I suspect.
We love seeing that what we get very excited about and passionate about, just because we think it's really good business. It's not because we are, trying to impose our values on clients. We look at it as advanced risk management. And it's really powerful to be able to go back to those folks and say, why wouldn't we use all the data to try and select the right company? Why wouldn't we go off balance sheet and really understand the culture of an organization? Because let's just think about this. People are working remotely. What assurances does the team and a stockholder have that the employees are really, focused and passionate about their work? When you see these companies who have already thought this through and they have a really developed culture, I I can tell you that's not really as big of a concern. Like the innovators and the disruptors, as well as those that are doing biopharma, all kinds of sectors that are the sustainable leaders are also, culturally, I think, at a huge advantage. So, yeah. that's the story we're telling.
I want to do a deep dive on that in a second, but I want to just return for a moment to the business of your business and
Sure.
and as you think about what, if any, changes do you anticipate making to the business going forward? Did you notice any gaps in or holes in the plans that you had in place prior to this?
Actually, we're feeling pretty good about our practice itself. If anything, we have just hired on a fifth partner. So again, like we're in expansion mode and
Wow.
we have our team in Hawaii, which is our core business. That is our community of really devoted folks we've had for 35 years that have helped shape our practice. And we're so grateful for all of the families, founders, foundations who've been by our side for so long. But as we're going into the national dialogue with me, a lot of it, the thought leadership in terms of the speaking and the white papers, et cetera, and also getting in front of larger institutions and opportunities and partnering with other advisors on this too. It just makes sense for us to have more folks like us on the ground. So we're actually hiring a partner who is almost 20 years, oh no, maybe 15 years younger than I am, to be in San Francisco, which is kind of one of our largest marketplaces. So as much as we believe that virtual is here to stay, and we do very well virtually, we feel very good about being able to convey community and connection, even if we're not sitting side by side. We still believe in the magic of being able to be in the room or at least very close to someone. And so we've made moves to have our next partner be right, based in the marketplace where we see the most opportunity.
So let's talk a little bit about your clients. You mentioned that you're touching them quite frequently, and that's working. I suspect
Hmm.
that, like many advisors, most of your clients had investment plans in place. They knew the drill. They knew what their risk capacity might be. They knew when they were going to rebalance. Um, and so it
Hmm.
sounds like most of your clients are not panicking because they had plans in place and they were well communicated. Is
Hmm.
that fair to say?
Yes, we have a very structured kind of quarterly review process, and in the second quarter is when we do a deep dive on financial plans. And so, annually, our clients are giving, we're updating and fine tuning, the plan itself. So yeah, people. That's the other benefit of having Morgan Stanley as our, firm, is that those plans can be articulated, and they are articulated online for them to be able to see how are we doing. And at any given day of drop, the plan is monitored, and they can see just how dramatic, that affects their plan or not. But it also goes not just for the market. It's hey, I just helped put a down payment for my daughter's home, and this is actually taking me off track for retirement, but I get it because I'm buying into this plan too. So I understand that, you know what is going in, what is going out, what is fluctuating, it's all a part of it, and we all play a role. So yeah, I know no one's panicking. And it's interesting because even in the first few weeks, I think because they'd experienced, our clients, a lot of them had experienced what we went through in the financial crisis. They kind of knew, okay, I'm going to get to hear from you twice a week for the next few
Right.
weeks, And so it was kind of like this, I hate to say it, but it was a little bit of a love fest of like, oh, Noel, I get to hear from you again. And how is your family? And talk to me about what you know, talk to me about what you don't know. And that's what we went through years ago. And for those of our clients who we've taken on in the last 10 years, we gave them that script and said, so here's how we operate during these times. We call you, we tell you what we know, we tell you what we can't know, we talk to you about how this applies to your individual situation, but mostly, you know, we really want to check in with you. We want to hear how everyone's doing. We want to see if there's been any changes to your, life vision, because ultimately we're working on the basis from pre, crisis. And so if anything has changed, like let's talk
Right.
through that.
It's
Yeah.
interesting as you're talking. I'm reminded of a podcast we did a little bit ago with Cindy Pagliaro from Vanguard, where they had done some research looking at what's the value proposition of advice, and I'll boil it down into its simplest. Half of it came from investment performance from an advisor doing all the blocking and tackling around creating investment plans and delivering against that investment plan. But half of it was related to emotional aspects and how their clients felt about
Mm.
whether they were on track toward achieving their goals and the relationship that they had with the advisor. So it seems to me as you're talking that you're speaking to that 50% of value that comes from the emotional support, not just the investment performance side of things.
Well, in these times, I think the ratio is even higher, right?
Right.
So I think that that's a wonderful study, and I'm so glad that Vanguard put that together. And I'm so glad that the whole area of study in behavioral finance is flourishing because I think it is such a, these are not, it's what makes a market, right? Our human biases and our behavioral, kind of I wouldn't say failures, but all of it plays into what makes a market. So I agree that it is part of our value. I would say that our team, we're very good at that part, but I also appreciate that because I'm not the only one with a CIMA on my team, and I'm not the only one with advanced learning and dealing with really complex estates, and I'm not the only one who's really focused on how to build very sustained and durable, resilient income in retirement. Like these components are not just in my head, it's my partners as well. We've got credentials across all four of us. And eventually with our fifth, we'll encourage her to do that as well. And so I paint that picture because absolutely to me, that science part and the math behind the work of an advisor is to me, you have to have that done. You have to be a master of your craft. But what allows you to actually be masterful is that emotional piece and that human connection. Because ultimately, it doesn't matter if you have the most beautiful portfolio. If your client cannot feel the effects of that and feel conviction in that, it won't matter if they see a statement and all of a sudden the numbers look way off base from their expectations, or it has nothing to do with their portfolio, but they're in crisis emotionally and they have no one to talk to. They're feeling that their world is upside down. All that does is create a trigger, to make a grave mistake. And so, yes, we see our job as creating this incredible custom solution that is built uniquely for our clients and the goals that they have. And none of our two clients look the same, by the way. We are probably why we don't have the biggest business is we're kind of like these really obsessed architects, basically, who really get into the design piece. But beyond that, it comes alive when we talk with our clients and we're able to share with them how it's working for them and relate it to their lives. So that I think there's a difference between knowing cerebrally that your portfolio is working and actually having faith in it. So it goes from the heart and it goes down. It goes from the mind and then it drives down to the heart. Because if you have conviction, even in the hardest times when you don't have all the information, you still say, you know what? You look into the portfolio and you say, I can imagine a world without blank, just enter company name that we have high conviction in, or I can't imagine, that even as things get really tough, that this wouldn't be the best possible solution because my advisor has given me the context and also believes in me that we can do this together, right?
Mm. Right. So this question, I think I already know the answer to it, but given all the planning that you do and all the
Yeah.
monitoring that you do and all the client touching that you do, I, I can't imagine that you've had to make any major or even minor adjustments to your clients' investment, financial, retirement plans. That it's
Um, we've made some adjustments, and actually, I would say that again, Morgan Stanley is so on top of understanding what adjustments need to be made based on the changing landscape. So we're very lucky. It's a very intentional choice to be at this firm because we get such great guidance, not just from New York, but London, Hong Kong, Japan. We have amazing Asian partners. So we have wonderful research. So that really guides our thinking because the game has changed, right? You don't flood the economy with so much cash and not do anything to your fixed income strategy. Granted, the amount of fixed income we have, and that's what our plan will tell us, the amount we should have, but the composition needs to change if we're doing our job right. And so I would say that, have we made dramatic changes in terms of how much in each slice of the pie? Not dramatic, more like minor tacking kind of tweaks, but the actual composition to us has to change in the areas like alternatives and fixed income in particular, because that just the notion of how much cash is flooded into the system, like you cannot deny that you need to make changes when that happens.
Mm. So let me turn to the wisdom side of this, which is, when I think about younger advisors who maybe didn't experience what happened in 2008 or other periods of time, and who are grappling perhaps with how to deal with clients. Any advice for them with respect to either the best practices that you've established or things that they should be thinking about as they might be they themselves in a panic state?
Oh, you bring up two really good points. Okay, first of all, if you find yourself in a panic state as an advisor, don't get on that phone, because the last thing your client needs is to hear the panic in your voice. Just use the analogy of the flight attendant in turbulence, right? You are the person that people are looking to know just how, just where we're at in this storm. I was going to use a vulgarity, but I won't. So yeah, just the pulse of what's going on. So in order to do this, I've been doing a lot of this great work on evolutionary relationships recently. And one of the things that this spiritual advisor guy was saying is, you must tune your own instrument before you perform in the orchestra. And I just love that idea, because as a young advisor, I'll get into the second part of this. As a young advisor, you don't have years of experience to hang your hat on. You probably didn't even get to go through the crisis previously. As I say, get to go. I feel really lucky I did, because it informed everything that we do now, right? But
Right.
At 26, which I was a young advisor, and I started in 2007, I had about 4 months to get to know people before Lehman collapsed. And so I would come to these conversations, and at that point, an aside, but very related, I was like at yoga instructor level yogi. I would go into these conversations and truly tune in to, what is this person asking me? I did not have my credentials. I didn't have years of experience. All I had was the knowing that I could be with this person, truly get to know them and their fears and the concerns they have, take all that information and be like a librarian on speed and like go and research the best I could and bring that information back to them and demonstrate time and time again how I would continuously do that and show them, yes, I have the best resources. Yes, you're with the person who is the most energetic and pumped up to help you. All the while, not showing that frenzy to you, being in your presence, taking it all in, working my tail off, and then coming back to you consistently so that you recognize that I am your partner in this. And by the way, there are other advisors who've been doing this for 35 years, and they are not nearly hustling. Some of them are going, oh, not this again, and they're checked out. So recognize that your greenness and your youth and your energy is actually, it could be an advantage. So own that advantage, but don't get overly hyper, with your prospects. Just be with them. That is a major value add.
Right. I'm reminded of times back in 2008 when I would hear complaints from clients about someone making a call to their advisor and not getting a return call in
Yeah.
the middle of this. And
Oh,
obviously there's right, problematic to
yeah. Yeah, and that's what's tough. I think as a younger advisor, you can't quite shape your practice, and so you really got to take every call. But I would say that every opportunity to pick up the phone and make a proactive call, even if the person on the other side is deeply emotional. And by the way, most people, especially when it comes to working with their advisor, if they haven't gotten a call in years, it's not going to be sad, it's going to be anger, right? I
mm,
saw that as an opportunity to say, let me see how I can, first of all, be that person to receive, all that anxiety and frustration, repeat it back to that person and say, I hear what you're saying. I want to make sure I heard you. These are the things you said. Is there anything more I should know? And use every single conversation as an opportunity to not only learn about someone, but you're using it as an opportunity to grow as an advisor, to have that emotional capacity to take on any conversation. You're learning, you're building that muscle to be able to go into every interaction and be finely tuned and almost zen about what there is to the opportunity that comes from it.
so, are there some things that we haven't touched upon with respect to either your practice or your clients or impact investing that we ought to cover before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if you wanted to ask me what phase are we in now? You had your before the storm, now we're in the storm, then you're making sure everyone was okay. Now where are we? I would say we're settling into the storm. We haven't found a durable bottom at this point in terms of our market. I mean, some will say we have, but there's still a push and pull, a tug of war between the bulls and the bears. And it's not the time to try to merge in traffic unless you absolutely have to, trying to time and all that type of thing. It's, I think certain advisors really love to do that. I think it's really tough to do. So what we're trying to do with clients is just focus on the horizon as the fog lifts and talk about how we're charting our course. We so we're from Hawaii. So our North Star, our Hokulea, the canoe, it's a vision that the Hawaiians got to Hawaii guided by the stars. So these are all metaphors that for us culturally really resonate. And so for us, as the fog is starting to lift and we're able to see what's really going to happen in our economy in a post-pandemic world, we're looking at themes and understanding what will the post-pandemic consumer need? What will they want? What big shifts will take place? Maybe it's air filtration, like major microbiotic, like major medical air filtration that the NBA all have to, buy in order to have like a viable, game.
Mhm.
I don't know. We're thinking these things through, and it's been wonderful as a team to put all these ideas up on the board and hear from our portfolio managers who are already there, like the innovation and the disruption that's going to happen, whether it's already with fintech and digital wallets, we have a hands-free exchange of money, or next gen DNA sequencing, like who's doing that really effectively. And then of course, this is our first real pandemic of our conscious generation right now, but it's not for Asia. So what about that Asian consumer who's like, yep, we went through SARS and now this, but we're kind of back buying stuff. What companies are in a position to really be able to benefit from that? And then, of course, our North Star continues to be this notion that the most resilient companies are the ones that really consider all risks to business, whether they're climate, human, and are really focused on culture. So that to us is kind of the conversation we're having with our clients, but we also are. So, lastly, I would say we also are taking every opportunity to thank them and just really be grateful because I can tell you, our team in our huddles and everything else, I feel this incredible energy, and we are so pumped up about the work that we're doing and the way that we're able to really serve an important need right now. And so, as a part of that, we've actually organized like a private concert with an opera singer. I know that sounds really kind of out of the box, but it's just a way that everyone in our community, whether it's our clients or prospects, the folks who we love the most, it's just a way to kind of bring them together and just say thank you because, to us, we have a really bright future and it's going to be way different than what we knew, but it's going to be really phenomenal as we go into it together.
Well, I hope I can watch the opera.
Yes, you'll get the invite. She's wonderful. She's brilliant. Her name's May Arden. We're very excited to have her sing to everyone we love.
I must admit, watching all the concerts on either Zoom or on the television have been sort of take your mind off things and heartwarming to see all things like that.
Exactly.
So music is a way of doing that. Any other last thoughts before we wrap up?
Sure. I mean, I guess I just would say that I feel really blessed and fortunate to be a part of the Investment and Wealth Institute community. It is, to me, the greatest group who really bring all of themselves. They're all in. It's not just a job; it's a calling. And I think that this podcast is wonderful because anytime you find yourself working harder than you ever have, even though your kids are running around, that's my world right now. Mm-hmm. It's so lovely to look across and see people just like you who are so devoted and so passionate, and just give them like a wink and a high five virtually. And that's what I think is so significant and wonderful about this organization. So all I would say is, thank you, Bob, for doing this podcast. And thank you to the Institute for even knowing that this would be something that folks could appreciate.
Yeah, well, from the bottom of my heart, Noel, thank you for doing it because I know that there's a lot of members out there who will benefit greatly from you sharing these words of wisdom with us. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of our special series, Exceptional Advisors in Extraordinary Times. My guest has been Noel Pacarro Brown, a financial advisor with the Conscious Wealth Management Group at Morgan Stanley. If you've enjoyed this podcast, then don't miss our Exceptional Advisor webinar series hosted by Tony Davidow, available at investmentsandwealth.org. Stay up to date and have the latest episode delivered straight to you by subscribing through iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. The Institute stands ready to help you as you navigate these turbulent times with new resources, research, programs, accommodations for candidates and certificates. For more details on resources available, visit www.investmentsandwealth.org.